Hello and welcome back to the channel of nonsense. I'm going to start this video with a slightly unprofessional but very open admission. Towards the end of last year, 2023, I made a vow that in 2024 I was going to review fewer electric cars on the channel and more petrol and diesel ones. The reason being, I've driven so many EVs that are all very derivative, all very adequate. They've usually got too small batteries, they're usually too expensive, and they depreciate like a stone. And the market for new EVs in the UK is actually stagnant and starting to shrink. But anyway, I've said I'm only going to allow EVs on the channel if they do something different, if they're innovative, if they are, well, just curious and interesting things, really, which is why we've got the BYD Seal here. Let's find out if it's any good. It's my first time in a BYD, a Build Your Dreams, not a Roger Your Father round the back passage. You can work that one out. Let's go. Much like the rest of BYD's current UK range, this is named after an aquatic creature. So we've got this, the Seal, you've got the Dolphin, and the Atto 3. I've always wanted to swim with the Atto 3s. Not their buses though. BYD sells a lot of those as well. They've actually sold more than 5 million cars globally, and they've been around since 1995, so yeah, it's only really news to us here in the UK, not the rest of the world. But anyway, this Dolphin, it's a Tesla Model 3 rival. It's going to cost £46,000 for a single motor, which will do about 350 miles on a charge. £48,000, or close to 49 actually, for this dual motor, which can do technically 323 miles on a charge. But yeah, let's take a look at it. Now, let's talk about the way the BYD Seal looks, and I do like the way it looks, despite the fact I'm about to use this phrase, the headlights. It's a little bit like a Porsche Taycan, Renault Clio and Tesla Model 3 went into a booth at a sperm bank and had a messy roulette, and this is what we've got. They're very sharp LED ones with C shapes here. I think it looks quite a nice design. The design director at BYD is a man called Wolfgang Egger, who you've probably not heard of. It just sounds like German name roulette, frankly. But he designed the Alfa Romeo 8C Competizione. So he's got some good things on his CV. Around the side, the Seal kind of shares a similar silhouette to the Hyundai Ioniq 6 and the Tesla Model 3. But I think it's actually better proportioned than both those cars. It certainly hasn't got the rear end derpiness of the Hyundai. BYD is primarily a battery company that is kind of split out into doing cars as well, using their batteries. And this has got apparently a very advanced blade battery, and the top of that battery forms an integral part of the floor of the car. So it's not like they've just bolted a battery into it. The battery is the car, like an AA thing with wheels on. I don't mean AA as in the people that rescue you when your Renault Clio breaks down. I mean the AA thing you put in your children's toys that you then want to throw in the bin. And not Alcoholics Anonymous. Around the back, I think the Seal looks a little bit more anonymous, like a mouse with a paper bag over its head in a field of other mice. But yeah, you've got this kind of fake diffusery thing down there. This very Peugeot-esque light bar. I still think that is nicked from the 508 SW, but the new Volkswagen ID7's kind of nicked that as well. The boot is electrically opening on all models, but it's not very big. The thing is, that blade battery, it might be really good for making the car more rigid, to make it handle better, but the reality is, you still haven't got much boot space. It's 402 litres. Now this car is 4.8 metres long. Normally in an internal combustion car that is that long, you get a much bigger boot. And it's worth noting it is a saloon as well, like the Model 3, but the Polestar 2 has the same size boot as this, but that's a hatchback. So if you want something similar in size to this, but with a bigger boot, get a Polestar 2. But yeah, that's a reasonably wide opening, I guess. You've got cables in there. You have got a frunk on the rear-wheel drive models, and you've got a bit of space under there as well for your tyre inflation kit. But yeah, I would say that boot is a little bit measly. It does close very quietly though. Satisfying. One thing I forgot to mention about the back of the Seal is you get this 3.8S badge, and that doesn't mean it's got a 3.8 litre cup holder. It means you'll do 0 to 60 in 3.8 seconds. So yes, I don't put that on the slower one, I don't think. It doesn't say 5.9, because that'd be weird, because the cheaper car would have the bigger number, and that doesn't make sense. Nor do I. Right, the Seal's cabin is the real reason I got this car into review, because it is just unlike anything else that I've ever driven here in the UK. It's got all this swoopy architecture which looks like a mermaid's waistline or something equally pervy. This is all kind of like fluffy Alcantara. It's quite soft and leathery. It's got nice blue and grey stitching. The seats are very comfortable. They are a little bit fake leathery. They're a bit pleathery, but they are heated and cooled as well. And I should say there are only 2 trim levels of this car, and that depends on whether you get the rear wheel drive one or the 4-wheel drive one. They're both very well equipped. You get a digital dashboard as standard. You get this massive infotainment screen as well, which has been the subject of millions of TikTok videos because it can do this. You press a button on the steering wheel and it twiddles. I don't really know why it does that. They say it's so sat-nav works a bit better. But look, it's summer. I'm driving. I've got my polarized sunglasses on and I can't see it when it's like that. If I press the button and twiddle it back, I can see it. But yeah, that's like, they've not really thought that through. Polarized sunglasses obviously make the screen go black when it rotates like that. But whatever, it's got Apple CarPlay, you have to plug in to use it, Android Auto as well. But it's quite a faff to use, to be honest. And this is probably one of my biggest negatives with this car, is the user experience is quite fiddly. So to put the heated seats on, I've got to press that, I've got to press that, and then I can change them. It's got heated steering wheel as well, by the way. And it's got air purification. It's just a little bit baffling, and it's been designed by someone that hasn't designed car infotainment systems before. That's what it feels like. And it shows you random stuff. Like you can always see the incline angle of the car at the top right of the screen. I'm not in a Defender, I'm in an electric saloon. So why do I always have to see that? I've got 1 degree of pitch on at the moment. Also shows you the air quality inside and outside the car permanently as well. There are some more annoyances with this car in terms of the driver assistance stuff. So it's got a speed limit warning on it like most modern 2024 cars, but I don't think you can even turn it off. I've not found how you can turn it off. So yeah, the worst thing though is that speed limit warning is driven by the traffic sign recognition, which is basically done by Stevie Wonder. I'm driving down a 40 limit and it will think it's a 5 mile an hour limit. I don't know where it's seen a 5 mile an hour sign, but then it will bong at you constantly because it thinks you're doing 40 in a 5. We don't really have 5 mile an hour limits here in the UK, BYD. It will see a 10 mile an hour sign when you're doing 60, and then it will bong and it drives you nuts. And the only way around it is to turn off the traffic sign recognition, which then resets when you turn the car off and on. That was a very loud BMW M5. So yes, most of my niggles with this are software related, not hardware related, but yeah, this is a bit fiddly, and also you have to use the screen to adjust the climate controls. The only physical controls you've got down here are to turn the fans off and on and to do the front window heater. To do the rear window, you've got to go through the menus. So yeah, but you've got driving modes. You've got normal sport and eco. Sport makes this one really fast, which we'll get to in a bit. You've got around view cameras, you've got a snow traction control mode. It's good, it's got built-in Spotify, you have to log in. The built-in sat-nav is okay, but the American voice is really annoying. Let's talk about the rest of the cabin. You've got dual wireless phone charging mats here, which is really good, and it shows you on here when they're charging and they work, which is good, unlike some Volkswagen Group ones. You've got loads of storage under here as well. You've also got some USBs at 12 volt. You have got a big storage bin here. You've got an NFC reader here because you can use a key card thing to get in and do all that stuff. And then you've got a big glove box too, which actually just feels quite cheap when you open it. I just noticed that. Got a full length sunroof. Big deal for me though, the seats don't go low enough. It's a bit like the Hyundai Ioniq 6. It's not quite as bad. In that car I hit my head every time I got in and out. It was like I had a head-butting fetish. But this, yeah, I have to duck down a bit to get out. The door bins are quite small as well. One thing I should point out that is very good is the standard Dynaudio sound system. I think it's 12 or 14 speakers. It's really good, it's really bassy, and it makes me want to get in the car. But yeah, this is a relaxing car to drive, as we'll find out in the driving bit. Up to a point when it gets fiddly and annoying when you start doing stuff. Oh, forgot to mention crystal gear knob, or kind of crystallish see-through plastic gear knob. It's quite nice. It's supposed to look like a teardrop. I'm glad I don't cry like that. Backseat accommodation in the BYD Seal is a little bit of a mixed bag, to be honest. I am 6'3". That is in my driving position when it goes forward, when I turn the car on. So that actually will give me more knee room. Yeah, loads of knee room. Headroom is just about okay, but if I was half an inch bigger, I would smack my head on the panoramic sunroof, which is very nice because it goes all the way back beyond my bald head, which is quite nice. But the real elephant in the room is there's no footroom under the driver's seat, and I've already said the driver's seat doesn't go low enough to feel sporty, and if it did go any lower, I would have absolutely zero room. As it is, I can jam my little toes under there. It's a little bit annoying, a bit of a shame. However, it's a very flat floor. There's no hump in the middle of the floor, as you'd expect from a battery-powered car. You've got USBs down there. The ISOFIX points, parents, are very easy to get to. They're kind of behind these rubbery flaps that you just kind of stick your ISOFIX shaft through. Door bins, they're not the biggest, and also the kind of wall on them is quite low, so stuff might fall out quite easily. But yeah, it's okay. It's okay. It's a mixed bag. It's just a shame the battery means you've got no footroom. Oh, by the way, fun fact about that battery, it's cobalt free, so it's officially 15% less evil than most EV batteries. But anyway, that cyclist thought I was solo dogging. This channel's not called Tim Rodey Does Dogging, it's called Tim Rodey Drive Stuff, so let's go and drive the BYD Seal. Right, I'm going to take you along for a quick ride in the BYD Seal. You put your foot on the brake, hit that start button, and pull the crystal knob of delight back into D. And the first thing you really notice when you drive this car, for me, is that the driver's seat doesn't really go low enough, and yeah, I feel like I'm sitting on it rather than in it. Now, the next thing you'll probably notice in this version, which is, I think it's called the Excellence, the all-wheel drive one, is the ride is pretty firm. On a bumpy British country road like this, it can get bad, to be honest, like over that bump, it's not great. But then on a smooth road, it is actually pretty decent. So it's a really bipolar car in terms of ride quality, and this one has got adaptive dampers on it. Well, they're semi-active dampers. Depending on the road conditions, it automatically adjusts the damping. But yeah, it's an okay cruiser. I've done some motorway miles in this. The range drops quite quickly and it's not that efficient. I've been getting about, I think about 3.4 miles per kilowatt hour. I say about because you've got to get your calculator out to do the sums, because it tells you it in kilowatt hours per 100 miles. But anyway, the indicator stalk, that's on the right hand side of the wheel, as with some other Asian cars. Not on the left as in the UK. Now, how am I going to get past this car? Oh, I'm struggling to get back on the road. That's a lot of wheel spin in the mud. But yes, let's talk quickly about performance in this car, because it's quite interesting. It is 3.8 seconds to 60. I've got 530 horsepower, and I think about 700 newton meters of torque in this one. So it is a big, fast dual motor EV. It's not messing about, but the way it delivers it is quite unusual. Right? Let's put it in sport mode. So you don't get quite the same violent whip crack, neck snapping acceleration. Look, let's just do a launch here. Let's do 0 to 40, because that's the speed limit. I'm just going to boost it. Yeah, I mean, it does make you feel distinctly uncomfortable, but it hasn't got the instant, it's kind of softened on the throttle response, which I quite like. But yeah, if you're a Tesla fanboy and you go off showing off your car to your crypto bros, this probably won't have quite the same impressive effect. But it is really, really fast, as you might imagine, and then that drops your efficiency somewhat. Now, the handling in this car has actually impressed me. Admittedly, it's been very wet since I've had this, but it grips pretty well, and it goes around corners, and even though the steering's numb, it does give you a sense of confidence. It's got independent rear suspension. It's not like a cheap suspension setup, he says, trying to pull out of a junction. But yeah, it goes. And I have seen Carwow managing to get one of these sideways on the brake, so go and watch their video if you have to, if you want to see one of these being slid around. But actually, as a day-to-day living with thing, it is pretty good. It's just the traffic speed awareness bongs get right on your nerves after a while if you go 1 or 2 miles an hour over the limit. There we go. And then it will misread the road signs, as I've said, and it will just bong at you constantly, which is just infuriating. But yeah, around here, you can drive it quickly cross-country in the wet, as you can with most EVs, to be honest. Actually, I'm not going to go up there. I'm going to go down here, just confuse everyone. Yes, I've lost track of the number of times I've accidentally done the windscreen wipers instead of the indicators, but you do get used to it being on the wrong side eventually. One other little thing I should point out is you can adjust the regen effect of the brakes in this car, but again, you've got to go through the infotainment system to do it. There are 2 levels. I've just left it in the high one because I quite like a load of regen when I lift off the accelerator. It makes me feel as if I'm going to get some free miles eventually. Now, in terms of real world range, this one got about 300 miles reported on a full charge. realistically, I think you're probably going to get close to that, to be honest. I'm currently at 52% with 170 miles, so yeah, that should be about 340 miles on a real world, but it did drop quicker than it said it was going to, if that makes sense. But yes, to drive, it's not exactly scintillating overall. It's can't decide if it's going to be comfortable or uncomfortable. It will bong at you. It's okay. Let's go back to me, where I'll try and make sense of this hodgepodge of good things and bad things, and what I like to call a conclusion. How do you like the new GoPro angle? It's probably making my moobs look absolutely massive, because they are. Right, time to sum up my thoughts on a week with the BYD Seal. It's been a voyage of discovery, frankly. As a car journalist, I've never driven a BYD, and this has been quirky, unusual, sometimes a bit frustrating and a bit annoying, but overall, pretty decent. I'm going to give it 7.5 out of 10. But why, I hear you ask? Possibly. Well, let's do the likes first. I like the fact it's very fast. I like the fact it handles pretty well, and the cabin is pretty roomy. My biggest like though is the general ambiance in the cabin. It does different things using Alcantara swoopy shapes. It feels like quite a luxury car for the most part. Now, the negatives. It's not massively efficient. I've been getting about 3.4 miles per kilowatt hour, sometimes a bit less. I think that's because this weighs about half a ton more than a Tesla Model 3, and that's because the Tesla Model 3 these days doesn't have anything in it, like indicator stalks made of granite. But yeah, I also don't like the fact the ride is too firm. Sometimes it's really decent, and sometimes you'll go over a bump and it will 1-2 punch your vertebrae and destroy your spine for a week. I also don't like the usability issues on the infotainment screen. It can just be a fiddle to do simple tasks. And also the indicator stalk is on the right hand side, which is like my old MR2, but that's not really a massive dislike. So yes, I would say this is a pretty decent car. If you're in the market for a Tesla Model 3, but you want something that stands out from the crowd a bit, do give one of these a look. Go and have a go one, see what you think. Hopefully that has been helpful. I've been quite interested by it. It is a compelling sort of car, and I think you keep discovering little cool things about it, and then at the same time some slightly annoying niggly things about the infotainment screen, but whatever. Thank you for watching this. If you made it this far, I really do appreciate it. Hit like on the video if it's been helpful, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time when I won't be getting blinded by the sun. And I can't complain about that. It's February in England, and I'm not being drowned in mud and water. For once. Bye.